Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Escudero, Senator Estrada, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, Senate President Gatchalian.
With 21 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the first session of the first special session of the 20th Congress, Wednesday, June 17, 2026, and consider the same as approved, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 533.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
May we ask the Secretary to read the title of the resolution?
Resolution informing the House of Representatives that a quorum is present in the Senate and that this body has entered upon the exercise of its functions for the second regular session of the 20th Congress of the Philippines.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 533. I so move.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion of the majority leader is hereby approved.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we now consider proposed Senate Resolution number 534.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion of the majority leader is hereby approved. Consideration of the proposed Senate Resolution 534 is now in order. The Secretary will read the title and the text of the resolution.
Resolution informing President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. that a quorum is present in the Senate and that this body has entered upon the exercise of its functions for the second regular session of the 20th Congress of the Philippines. Resolved by the Senate that President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. be informed that a quorum is present in the Senate and that this body has entered upon the exercise of its functions for the second regular session of the 20th Congress of the Philippines adopted.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 534. So move.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion of the majority leader is hereby approved.
Mr. President, I move that we consider House Concurrent Resolution number 16.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Consideration of House Concurrent Resolution number 16 is now in order. The Secretary will please read the resolution.
Concurrent resolution providing for the Senate and the House of Representatives to hold a joint session to hear the message of the President of the Republic of the Philippines. Resolved by the House of Representatives that the Senate concurring that both Houses of Congress of the Republic of the Philippines hold a joint session on Monday, July 27, year 2026 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the session hall of the House to hear the message of the President of the Republic of the Philippines. Adopted.
Mr. President, with that, I move that we adopt House Concurrent Resolution number 16.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, concurrent resolution number 16 is hereby adopted.
Mr. President, I move that we consider Senate Concurrent Resolution number 12.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion of the majority leader is hereby approved. Consideration of the Senate Concurrent Resolution number 12 is now in order. The Secretary will read the title of the text of the resolution.
Concurrent resolution creating a joint committee of the Senate and the House to notify the President of the Philippines that Congress now convened for its second regular session of the 20th Congress of the Philippines is ready to hear his State of the Nation address in a joint session of both houses. Resolved by the Senate, the House concurring that a joint committee of both houses of Congress be created, composed of members of the Senate to be appointed by the President of the Senate and the members of the House to be appointed by the Speaker to notify the President of the Philippines that Congress now convened for its second regular session of the 20th Congress of the Philippines is ready to hear his State of the Nation address in a joint session of both houses. Adopted.
Mr. President, with that, I move that we adopt Senate Concurrent Resolution number 12.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, Senate Concurrent Resolution number 12 is hereby adopted. Pursuant thereto, I hereby appoint to the Joint Notification Committee on the part of the Senate the following: Senator Lito Lapid, Majority Leader Juan Miguel Zubiri, Senator J.V. Ejercito, Senator Francis Pangilinan, Senator Joel Villanueva.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, my dear colleagues in the Senate and those watching the public, we are now ready to listen to the address of our Senate President.
To my esteemed colleagues in the Senate, the members of the Diplomatic Corps, fellow public servants, distinguished guests, and above all, the Filipino people, good morning. Handa ang inyong Senado na harapin ang mga hamon ng ating bayan ng may linaw na layunin at agarang pagkilos. Naririnig namin ang hinaing ng bawat Pilipino at naunawaan namin ang bigat ng kanilang pang-araw-araw na buhay. Kaya ang bawat panukalang ating isusulong ay dapat magbigay ng konkretong solusyon sa kanilang mga pangangailangan at magbukas ng mas maraming pagkakataon upang makamit nila ang kanilang mga pangarap. Our work begins with the economy because no vision of national progress can take hold while families struggle to meet their basic needs. The Development Budget Coordination Committee reduced our country's economic growth forecast for 2026 from 5 to 6% to 3.5 to 4.5%. At the lower end of the revised range, annual growth would be the slowest recorded since 2009, excluding the pandemic. These numbers are not abstract. They translate into lower incomes, fewer job opportunities, and heavier burdens for families struggling to get by. This concern is echoed in the projections of the International Monetary Fund and the Asian Development Bank. The IMF reduced its 2026 growth forecast from 4.1% to 3.9%, while the ADB lowered its forecast from 4.4% to 3.8%. The most urgent point of concern, therefore, is getting the Philippine economy back on track. To this end, this Congress will prioritize legislation aimed at invigorating the nation's economy in support of this administration's objective. Furthermore, genuine economic recovery cannot be measured by growth figures alone. It must be felt in the things that really matter: affordable goods and services, secure jobs, and food on the table. The national budget is our most powerful tool for stimulating the economy. It is imperative that the 2027 national budget be passed on time. Its timely passage allows funding to reach critical services and ensures that new projects can begin as scheduled and meet their deadlines. The Senate also introduced significant transparency and accountability reforms in the 2026 budget process, including the live streaming of the bicameral conference and the uploading of all budget documents to the Senate Transparency Portal. These reforms must continue so our people can see that government is accountable and reliable. Kasabay ng maagap at masusing pagpapasa ng pambansang budget para sa susunod na taon, 5 pangunahing usapin ang tututukan ng inyong Senado. Mataas na presyo ng mga bilihin, maliit na take-home pay ng mga manggagawa, mahal na singil sa kuryente, kakulangan sa infrastruktura at transportasyon, at kawalan ng kasiguraduhan sa hanapbuhay. Anuman ang ating katayuan sa buhay, ramdam nating lahat ang bigat ng mga problemang ito. First, we will address the continued rise in food prices. Over the past year, the average price of regular milled rice, a staple in every Filipino household, increased by almost 20%. Upang matiyak ang sapat na supply at abot-kayang presyo ng bigas, bibigyan natin ng prioridad ang mga amenda sa Rice Tarification Law na kabilang sa mga prioridad na panukala ng LEDAC. Titiyakin din natin sapat ang reserbang bigas ng NFA habang pinoprotektahan ang kita at kabuhayan ng ating mga magsasaka. Pangalawa, sa ating tututukan ang perang na iuuwi ng ating mga manggagawa. Dito nakasalalay ang kanilang kakayahang mapag-aral ang kanilang mga anak, magbayad ng kuryente at matugunan ang mga pangangailangan ng kanilang pamilya. Dahil sa mataas na inflation, nabawasan ang purchasing power o tunay na halaga ng perang kinikita ng ating mga kababayan. Ang halaga ng 100 piso noong 2018 ay katumbas na lamang ng 74 pesos ngayon. Kaya magiging prioridad ng inyong Senado ang ginhawa bill. Simple ang layuning ito, dagdagan ang take-home pay ng ating mga manggagawa. Sa ilalim ng panukala, ang kumikita ng hanggang 400,000 pesos sa isang taon ay hindi na magbabayad ng income tax. Tataasan din natin ang tax-free ceiling para sa mga bonus. Alisin din ang buwis sa overtime pay, holiday pay, night shift differential, hazard pay at service charge. Third, we will address the rising cost of electricity. Since December of last year, residential electricity rates in Metro Manila have steadily increased. By June, 4 months into the US-Iran war, consumers were paying as much as 14.50 pesos per kilowatt hour, up from 12.20 pesos during the same period last year. According to the recent Department of Energy briefing, the Philippines recorded the highest average electricity rate among ASEAN countries in June. These increases place an unfair burden on consumers and underscore the need for effective electricity regulation. Your Senate will work closely with the Executive and prioritize another LEDAC measure, the ERC Strengthening Bill. This measure will improve oversight, hold industry participants accountable, and ultimately protect ordinary consumers. The burden of high electricity costs extends beyond electricity. We also feel its effects in the transport sector, where our continued dependence on important petroleum leaves workers, commuters, and motorists vulnerable to events beyond our shores. The continuing effect in the Middle East has exposed the extent of this vulnerability. At the height of the crisis, diesel prices spiked to as much as 153.70 pesos per liter. The transport sector accounts for 49% of our country's petroleum imports. Your Senate will prioritize amendments to the Downstream Oil Industry Deregulation Act, another LEDAC priority measure. We will pursue greater transparency in the components of pump prices so that government can determine whether increases reflect global market prices and legitimate cost of unreasonable margins that should not be passed on the consumers. Fourth, we will focus on infrastructure. The fastest way to invigorate the economy is by accelerating infrastructure spending. Your Senate will prioritize the Master Plan for Infrastructure and National Development, or MIND Bill, another important LEDAC measure. It will establish a 30-year plan that will link and coordinate key infrastructure projects, including roads, airports, hospitals, and energy pipelines. This will help create jobs, attract investments, and drive long-term economic growth. Ikalima, tututukan natin ang pagpapalakas ng mga MSMEs. Tinalakay na natin ang ilan sa mga reformang isusulong upang mapababa ang presyo ng mga bilihin at singil sa kuryente, madagdagan ang take-home pay ng mga manggagawa, at mapabuti ang infrastruktura at transportasyon. Ang susunod nating bibigyan ng pansin ay ang pagkakaroon ng matatag at marangal na trabaho. Mula noon Mayo 2025 hanggang Mayo ng taong ito, mahigit 660,000 ang bilang ng mga Pilipinong nawalan ng trabaho. Upang maibalik ang mga nawalang trabaho at makalikha ng mga bagong oportunidad, kailangan natin palakasin ang mga negosyong nagbibigay ng hanap buhay sa ating mga kababayan. Kaya bibigyan natin ng prioridad ang mga amenda sa Magna Carta for MSMEs. Isa rin ito sa mga prioridad na panukala ng LEDAC. Mahalaga ito dahil 99.7% ng mga rehistradong negosyo sa Pilipinas ay mga micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs. Hindi lamang sila nagbibigay ng hanap buhay sa milyong-milyong Pilipino. Sila ay bunga ng pagsisikap at pangarap ng ating mga kababayan mula sa mga negosyong minana sa pamilya hanggang sa mga nagsimula sa garahe o maliit na food cart. Ano man ang uri, mahalagang haligi ng ating ekonomiya ang mga MSMEs. Kabilang sa mga reformang isinusulong sa Magna Carta for MSMEs ang mas madaling pagkuha ng puhunan at credit guarantees, pati ang access sa shared services, machinery at technical support. Mabibigyan ang ating mga MSMEs ng mas maraming pagkakataong makilahok sa mga proyekto ng gobyerno. Pabibilisin din natin ang proseso ng pagbabayad sa kanila. Malaking bagay ito sa pagpapalawak at modernisasyon ng negosyo. Sa ganitong paraan, matutulungan natin makaraos ang mga MSMEs sa paghina ng ekonomiya para hindi mawalan ng trabaho ang kanilang mga empleyado. The 5 aspects we have discussed are closely interconnected. Reforms in one area have effects that ripple into others. Strong coordination is therefore essential to ensure that the laws we pass are relevant, coherent, and effective. Thus, I propose the creation of an ad hoc committee tasked with helping drive economic growth, create jobs, and make the cost of living more affordable for every Filipino. Strengthening our economy requires a concerted effort, proactive action, and reforms that will endure beyond a single administration. My fellow senators, these priorities touch the daily life of every Filipino. When these systems work, they create opportunities, lift families out of poverty, strengthen communities, and drive national progress. When they fail, they burden our people, close the door to their aspirations, and hold back our nations for generations. We will maintain our commitments and reforms to education, health, and social protection. These are also essential investments in the future of our people, vital components to our long-term growth, and meaningful response in times of natural disasters. We will give close and sustained attention to preserving the gains made possible by our historic 1.3 trillion peso education budget for fiscal year 2026, equivalent to 4.4% of our country's GDP. This gives us a genuine opportunity to pursue significant reforms in a sector that shapes the lives of Filipino learners and determines the future of our nation. Maraming pagsubok ang hinarap ng ating bansa nitong mga nagdaang buwan. Ngunit sa bawat hamon, patuloy na ipinapakita ng bawat Pilipino ang kanilang tatag, sipag at kakayahang bumangon. Let us build an economy worthy of the strength of our people, one where work provides security, daily needs are within reach, and the fruits of growth are felt in every Filipino home. Let us be a nation that fulfills our potential, where laws protect livelihoods, institutions safeguard our people's well-being, and the government delivers effective, consistent, and compassionate service. The task before us is urgent and clear. Let us come together as one Senate, one government, one people, and set our nation towards a horizon of progress for every Filipino in every generation. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay ang Senado, mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That's a very nice speech that you made. It's the first time I saw a presentation in an opening speech of the Senate. Just goes to show how studious you are, Mr. President. Mr. President, before we suspend the session, may we request our colleagues to remain at the session hall for the photo session for this Congress, Mr. President. May we advise the public not to enter the hall where the photo session is ongoing as well. Mr. President, there being no further business, I move that we suspend session until 4 o'clock this afternoon, at which time we shall reconvene at the session hall of the House of Representatives to hear the State of the Nation address of President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. in the joint session of both houses of Congress. And when we adjourn the joint session, the session of the Senate shall be considered adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Tuesday, July 28, 2026.
We request our colleagues to remain at the session hall for the photo session, and we advise the public not to enter the hall while the photo session is ongoing. Is there any objection to the motion of the Majority Leader to suspend the session? Hearing none, the session is suspended until 4 o'clock this afternoon for the joint session of Congress. The members of the Senate are advised to proceed to and be seated at the session hall of the House of Representatives by or before 3:30 p.m. After the joint session, the session of the Senate shall be considered adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, July 28, 2026.
Yes, before you bang the gavel, Mr. President, because I have queries from my colleagues, just to be clear, tomorrow we start session at 3 p.m. Although by Wednesday, since we have the impeachment court, we will start Wednesday and every day after at 4 p.m.
Correct. The new schedule is tomorrow. We'll be starting at 3 p.m. And then on Wednesday, the impeachment will start at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and session will proceed after at 4 p.m.
That's correct, Mr.
All
President.
right.
Thank
Is
you.
there any objection? Hearing none, the motion of the majority leader is hereby approved.